Hello everybody, this is Eddie with Mobile Homestead Solar Services and Mobile Homesteading. And if you've been following along, this is a companion video with the installation of our new L16 1720 amp hour battery bank from Crown Battery. Crown Battery is out of Fremont, Ohio, and I am tickled to death to get them into our trailer. Right here and here and here is all our brand new 4/0 wire. I replaced the 2/0 wire because the loads that we're going to have on this is just a little bit too big for them, so we enlarged the 4/0 wire with the new battery bank. I've got a little bit of wires to tidy up, but not too much. Now this video is going to be about setting the charge parameters on these TriStar controllers. This is a Morningstar TriStar controllers, very reliable. I've had them in here for quite a long time. Actually, this one right here was actually in our other camper, and same thing with the one over here. So we're going to set the charge parameters. This one's already been done. You're going to help me with this one, and I'll do this one later. And then I've also got a fourth controller over in the corner here. It's not hooked up to anything. I'm going to set that up later. I'll do a video on a ground deployment. We're going to have a couple of panels. We've become semi-permanent where we're at right now because of the fuel prices and all that. But we'll go ahead and we'll start setting this one up. So let's get to work. Okay, the first thing you want to always do is disconnect your array before you even turn the power off to your solar charge controller. So I'm going to go in here and disconnect my solar array that goes to this solar charge controller. And then down here is my breaker that turns it off. Now, this is TriStar, Morningstar. We have PWMs. Yeah, it'd be nice to have MPPTs, but these work really well, and no reason to replacing something that's working, and it's working good for us. What we need to do is we have to have right around a 14.5. Now there's only a 14.4 and a 14.6. So we're going to set up the 14.6 on my batteries. Two reasons. One, we're not going to get a heavy of a depth of discharge on these L16s like you would on, say, in a house or something like that. And the other is I don't want to have to custom program, get out a computer and reprogram these. So 14.6 will work for our situation as long as I don't get too much heat in the summertime. So let's take that cover off and put it in. Okay, there you go. This is the cover off on this. I'll shine a flashlight in there. You can see right here is the dip switches. And with this, right now we're set up with a 14.8. The only thing that I have to change on these dip switches is one setting on number 6. That brings it from 14.8 down to 14.6, excuse me. And then from that point, I'll turn my batteries back on, solar charge controller back onto the batteries, and then my array back on, and just like that, you have changed your parameters from a higher voltage down to a little bit lower voltage. Now, you don't have to do this all the time. It's not like you're going to be replacing your batteries all the time, but when you do, or if it was set up incorrectly, you need to remind yourself that you need to disconnect your solar array first, and then turn the power, if you have a breaker, from your solar charge controller to your battery bank. You need to disconnect it, either turn the breaker off, or if it doesn't have a way of doing that, or if it has a fuse, you remove the wire from there, because you don't want to take the battery off while you still have solar power coming down. You want to take the solar array off first and then turn the battery on. And in reverse, when you fire it up, you want to take and make sure that you turn your power from your battery to your controller on first, and then apply your solar array. Okay, this is the second solar charge controller. I thought I'd give you a closer look at how I was switching the dip switches on this. Now, not everybody has dip switches. A lot of Victron equipment is all set through parameters that are done through programming, whether it be through the color display or through other remote connections. But see, the only bad thing about that is I have quite a few people call me up. My system's not working, they tell me, and I ask them, you know, have you been messing with the settings? And they tell me, well, I was doing this and doing that with my phone, and I might have got into the settings. So the one thing about those settings, I wish they make locks on them so that, you know, people would have to manually know that they're actually changing their settings. With these Morningstar, TriStar solar charge controllers, both the PWM and the MPPTs, you have to physically change them unless you have them connected to your computer. I really like this because this is a one and done. I set my solar charge controllers, and this is the first time I've had to mess with them. And well, since I built this trailer and moved them out of our other camper into this one. Same principle goes on this one. You go in, you disconnect your solar array first. That's your main. And then you go down here and you turn the battery connection to your solar charge controller off. Now, I'm going to try to get light in here so we can see better. But right here is my dip switches. And all I have to do is change that number 6 dip switch, which is this one right here. And they just move like that. As you can see, now I've moved the 6 down, and that sets me up from a 14.8 absorption charge to a 14.6 absorption charge, which works with these L16s. And then, as before, turn your battery to your solar charge controller on first, and then plug your array back in. Now, when it comes down to this part, this is any solar charge controller. If you're doing anything within to shut that unit down, you want to take the array off first when you're turning it off, and then turn your power from your battery to your solar charge controller off second. And then in reverse, you want to make sure that you take and turn your battery power to the solar charge controller first, and then hook up your array. You won't have any problems with your systems. You won't have any problems with your solar charge controller. Guys, it brings up one more thing. One of my pet peeves is circuit protection. I'm seeing a lot of systems with no circuit protection in it. These solar charge controllers, they're isolated. I have a disconnect for the array. I have a breaker for the battery side of it, so I can take and completely disconnect all the power off of this. It goes the same thing with having a disconnect for your inverters, your solar charge controllers, and then even over here I've got a battery converter just to back up. But the same thing goes with all this equipment. They all have their purpose. You know, the fuses, over protection, short protection, breakers, the same idea. But without any protection in this system, you could have a short, and then, you know, where you used to have your camper or tiny house or off-grid home, you'd have a burning hulk, you know, sitting there. So it's a whole lot better to have protection from your array to your solar charge controller to your batteries. This is a big thing. A lot of people really ignore the fact that you should have everything fused and everything having breakers to it, having some sort of circuit protection and ability to turn that off, just like this inverter right here. If this inverter was to short on me, one, it could blow the fuse down there, or if it goes bad enough, I can disconnect it with that battery switch. So the same thing goes with your solar charge controllers. Make sure that you have a way of disconnecting the array, and make sure that you have a breaker or a fuse in that system going to the battery, so no matter what, it will either blow that breaker or blow that fuse.